Let some folks come on in here and away we go. Good evening, everybody. Trust that we've got some audio. We had a little automatic mute thing go on the other time, but looks like we're golden here on this lovely, lovely day. Welcome back to Scott's Weather. It's a Monday. Plenty of things happened over the weekend, whether you were in the States or maybe in Africa where the rains are still happening, or a little chilly weather in New Zealand and also Argentina, because it is winter down there. And then up north, what would it be if we weren't seeing record highs somewhere north of the Arctic Circle? Because that's just the way 2020 and the recent weather. Just Twitter and share a little, crazy things that are happening on around the area. It's Douglas County, Colorado. This is just south of the Denver area where it's been dry. Straight up, it's just been plenty dry. So we're having little fires, accidental. Doesn't look like we've seen lightning strikes. It's certainly nothing like that, but this just a small affair considering all the fires that are in place right now across the western and how to be on the north side 40 of those events. There's a storm out west right now, and so it's kind of tough to get a good clear visual of those smoke plumes, but nonetheless they're out there. What we are getting visual just happens to be that's Saharan dust. It's given us some crazy looking sunsets with some odd color palettes. We'll look at those in a moment, but still from Texas, Louisiana, and on up to the north, the sand is in place and we're not done. And between the Sahara dust and what has happened in Africa. Amazingly, says Eric Webb, even after a period of unfavorable North Africa is still running the wettest May to June period on record by a very wide margin this year. So what we're looking at is the precipitation anomaly in millimeters per day, all the way from southern Yemen, even in parts of Saudi Arabia, off the shore of Somalia through Egypt's up here, but as we get through the northern part of subtropical Africa, the rains have just been phenomenal. Not so much of a shortage even in the Sahara region, but it's just an abundance of rainfall to the south. And how is that compared to normal? Well, here we are, 2020, like everything else, it's just off the charts. 3 sigmas or 3 standard deviations beyond normal to give us an illustration of just how much rain. So with all of this talk of drought, that's not really what we're seeing. There are isolated areas of drought, but with all of the heat in the oceans, that moisture has got to come out of the oceans. It can only go to the atmosphere. It can only cool off by evaporating. And that's what we're seeing is that higher vapor content in the atmosphere. And a thunderstorm that would have delivered maybe a quarter of an inch of rain will give you a third of an inch of rain. Enough of a difference that'll get you another day in between rainfalls for plant growth and so forth. Brutal heat, probably brutal in Louisiana, and that's just humidity. I'll look at that in just a moment. And this also relative. So we're seeing for average, the brown is below normal, where we have seen drier precip through a good portion of the Rockies, not so much the northern, but central Rockies, and then along the coast. And this is a function of missing rains from the winter, especially February and March. And that's why the West Coast, the middle part of the West Coast is so dry, but there are large, many square miles where we see or above 8 inches normal. So that's where the yellow is shaded from just north of the Gulf Coast all the way up to parts of Lake Erie, parts of Michigan, both upper and lower, and north of Milwaukee. So there's been a lot in the southern and southeastern United States. So you want to escape from the summer heat because it's just unbearable. Here's some summer snow in Idaho. This Blaine County, which is Sun Valley area, it's also uh, probably one of the state's highest COVID regions, and that was because of all the seasonal winter travelers that happened in January, February, and March in Idaho. But their elevation is not about 65, 7,000 feet, so it's not an exceptionally high location where this shot was. All right, Judah Cohen. Since early April, the rate of Arctic sea ice melt has been consistent with the past decade, but now the Global Forecast System, the GFS model, is predicting that the heat dome from Siberia will pinch off and drift into the central Arctic, possibly for much of July. High that sits up here, and we would probably see an accelerated melt of the Arctic in that region. Where would it be cool? Well, Siberia, Scandinavia, Northern Europe, and the western United States, with the corresponding heat, some of it lesser, some of it greater, in regions in between that. All right, Ben Knoll, the warmest ocean temperatures on the planet and eastern Indian Ocean in this area right here. This occasionally or should lend itself to La Nina-like atmospheric response during the upcoming months. So that could portend to how we anticipate the tropical weather coming in off of the Atlantic for the southeastern U.S. All right, much of the Saharan dust has moved. Weather dust plume currently over the Caribbean will reach the Gulf Coast just a little later this week. The dust plume not as dense as the Saharan air layer that was in place over the southeast over the last couple of days, and it's this haze all the southern Bahamas, probably that extent. And here's another little surge. So as Puerto Rico clearing out, probably returning to some of the blue skies, and then some of this dust cannot help but get entrained and drawn into the thunderstorm action that's in place. We come down there to minimize the middle part of the nation. Risk of flooding in Missouri. That's not going to be the only place. This is going to extend up into Alberta. That is going to be a high interest item over the next couple of days. This kind of is a repeat of the other one, and we'll probably leave that alone. And here's some dust. Again on satellite. This certainly looks like say, area raging winter storm, the one that brought the snow to Idaho earlier, creating all the winds. And there's just so much freestanding dust in Nevada that it just can't help but move, just can't help but become, airborne. It just happens. All right, when you're out checking out the weather, you come across occasional crazy things. Sasha says hi. That's good to see you, Sasha. Vicky and Karen, yes, you are blessed to be in Pennsylvania, especially rural Pennsylvania, if that is the case. How often do you get a bear stuck with a plastic mug, or can? Plastic is something that we're gonna have to deal with as a society soon enough. You get the bear in, and he's like, oh, there's something sweet down there at the end of that. Eventually, he was rescued, and they were able to. I had nothing to do with it, to get that can off. Had that been a dolphin in the ocean or a whale in the ocean, that would have he would have starved. Plain and simply, would have starved. All right, so that's kind of the crazy colors that the sand is bringing to sunrises and sunset across the southern part of the U.S. It's hot. It's hot out there. Parts of Amarillo still running 101. West Central Kansas at 101, 98, 89 is Cheyenne, where they're dealing with some good rains, and contrast that with portions of Idaho. Let's see if I can't reset the data and then come on, zoom in here. And we'll see some awfully chilly temperatures be plotted from mid-afternoon, mid 48 at Blackfoot or just outside of Blackfoot. So rather chilly. And I would bet that there'll be some folks that will be running to work tomorrow and be able to see pictures and photographs of snow not that far off the valley floor, and especially for after the first day of summer. In fact, we're a week into summer. There's the temperatures across the country. Find your location. And for that viewer, that points mid 70s, mid to upper 70s across the Gulf Coast with just a gentle south wind. So if you're looking to spend an evening outside, there's not going to be much of a wind to bring you some relief from that oppressive heat. Storms kind of ice the western edge of the hill country, but this is the snow and the cold, cold rain still churning over the northern Rockies, still unsettled in the northeast, with a northerly flow across the Keystone State and the Great Lakes states as well, and just some crazy mountain wave clouds through Colorado. Morning clouds beginning to burn off. Whether we'll see enough the firefighters, probably not. Probably need to get north of about the 40th parallel before we'll see enough water. And there's the rains up there. And if we do the winter mask is already on, so there's not a lot of snow, at least in the visibles. But it'll be curious to see what the drought monitor says. You know, how these rains that we've seen over the last weeks. The street farmers, I was reading about the agriculture conditions across Canada and the potato farmers in particular, and how pretty much from Prince Edward Island through Newfoundland, through Ontario, Quebec, Ontario, and then into Saskatchewan and farther west, it's just dry. It's been dry in Canada, and we'll probably begin to take care of that. We'll pop over here, not first. These are all the record low highs that did not achieve the coldest previous coldest for today. That's just kind of astounding. But 17 records. But what we're interested in, and I'll skip the jet stream, we'll go right down to the surface. This is our low, sitting right here in eastern Colorado, and it's going to end up right there, Alberta. It's going to curl up to the north as more energy comes down from the Pacific and curls in. But what that does is it takes all of that humidity, all of this humidity, and it's going to drive it up against the Canadian Rockies. Just drive it up against the Canadian Rockies. And the challenge with that is going to be, where is all this rain going to go? It's up in a nice little deep little storm, and then just gets, boom, slammed into those Rockies, and there's a lot of water there. And then it gets kind of reformed, and we see another low kind of skip on through, take form here and bring some additional rain. So I want to go to here for the total precip forecast, and then I'm going to roll the cursor over 2.25 inches west of Lake Winnipeg, 3-4 inches, and then we're going to run this out as far as the model runs, because it's still coming in. We're still only 78% done. And last evening, this had an 11-12-inch rainfall event for far northern Alberta. So the places up in Canada that have been terribly dry, likely to get saturated. Where's the rain going to go? It's going to try to find the lowest spot. That's just what it does. And I believe it was Edmonton dealt with $1 billion in damage from rains just 2 weeks ago. And it looks like there's going to be some kind of that particular event in the not so distant future. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at as Canada. And with that heat over Alaska, over the North Pole, that's something we're going to watch the snow melt up in the Arctic to see how that plays out. And because the heat's up there, that means the cool weather that would typically be in that direction has got to go somewhere else. And what south. And then that cooler weather farther south across Canada is intersecting the heat or all that humidity coming up from the tropics. And right now, this is where the rain is going to fall, is across Canada. We'll see how many more days that continues. All right, let's see who's on here. We've got Vic with a holy smokes. Yeah, I can't, sorry, I can't help myself. It's just something that I was born to enjoy. All right, guys, thanks for stopping in, and we'll do this yet again tomorrow. And Coffee Break Club in the morning with Vicky Helm, and who knows what she'll talk about. Tuesday it's not tacos, although tacos occasionally comes up. All right, guys, have a great evening.